Morning, everyone, and welcome to another formal meeting of Cabinet taking place on Tuesday, the 17th of June, 2025. Welcome to members, officers of the council, press who are not in the room but may well be watching online, and members of the public, particularly, all being well, are watching online. As mentioned on the online point, this meeting is being live streamed on the council channel. So welcome to those that are observing proceedings at Cabinet. With regards to meeting etiquette, please can I ask that you indicate that you wish to speak by raising your hand or by using the hand symbol if you are online. That's officers who will be joining online on any agenda item on the board. And then may I remind member colleagues and officers, if you could kindly introduce yourself when speaking, and if you so wish, your portfolio responsibilities and also the ward that you represent. Before we begin today's business, there are a few things that I would like to flag. Moments of joy that were experienced by some councillors and council officers last week. So last week, Newham won the Net Zero Award, leading local government cultural shift for our just transition to net zero at the Local Government Chronicle Awards 2025. And just to note, this is a commendable achievement because it formalises the ambitious and credible work that we've been doing in response to the climate emergency through the Just Transition Action Plan. And well done to Councillor John Whitworth in your cabinet role in leading the charge on all things just transition, and also to other colleagues from across all the service areas, but particularly in the Corporate Directorate of Environment and Sustainable Transport. And I know that Councillor John Morris, who's on leave this week, enjoyed himself thoroughly. I also wanted to commend Councillor Charlie McLean because the libraries, our libraries, received national recognition at the Libraries Connected Awards 2025, where they won in the Information Digital Award category. So it very much is a reflection of the hard work and energy that exists across all of our libraries. And I popped over there, to one of them at East Ham Library on Saturday, and it was really full of energy and lots of people accessing the space, taking up, but actually just coming together and undertaking a range of activities. As we all know, libraries are far more than just places. They are vibrant community hubs for learning, inclusion, connection and belonging. Thousands of residents every day in our borough. So well done. And could you please convey our thanks and appreciation to the team? Before we start formal proceedings, I also just wanted to ask us to take a moment of reflection in light of the devastating impact of the Air India crash last Thursday, where hundreds of lives were lost, thousands of families impacted, including families in Newham. We know of several families that are presently going through a period of mourning and grief, and who would have thought something happening far away would be very much visceral in terms of the pain that we're experiencing here at home. So if I can just ask that we all take a minute silence in respect of those lives lost, and to help in our thoughts and in our prayers the comfort that the families presently grieving will be needing at this moment in time. Joy, are you okay advising when the minute starts and when we conclude? Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so let's jump into the matters to be determined today. Okay. Apologies for absence, outside of Councillor John Morris. Are there any other formal apologies received, Joy?
Yes, Chair, we received apologies from Councillor Rita Cheddar.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. And then if I could kindly draw everyone's attention to declarations of interest across pages 7 to 8. In accordance with the Members' Code of Conduct, this is time for members to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests they may have in any matter being considered at this meeting, having regard to the guidance attached to the agenda. So colleagues, may I invite members of Cabinet only if you've got anything to declare against any of the items that are being presented this morning? No, okay, so that's a no, Joy. Thank you very much. And then if I can draw your attention to the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 6th of May 2025 and the additional meeting of Cabinet on the 29th of May 2025. And the minutes just capture the formal decisions of Cabinet. Can I just take them as read, and can I ask, are these an accurate record of the decisions taken? Councillor Shani McLean.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the 12th of May's meeting, I was on leave and I believe I did pass on my apologies, but they're not recorded, so
Okay, Joy, can we note that?
thank you.
Thanks a lot. Are those an accurate record of the decisions made at those two cabinets? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on to appointments to outside bodies. May I make an announcement that in the context of the West Ham Ecclesiastical Trust, Charitable Trust, I'm going to be making an appointment of Councillor Blossom Young to that body, and also will be making changes with regards to who I confer the role of chair to that body on my behalf, and that will be Councillor Blossom Young. And then I'll pick up any issues with regards to existing membership outside of this meeting. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Now moving to the LGA action plan. So colleagues, this is a report that's been presented as part of our regular reporting process. Ordinarily, the progress report against the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge recommendations and our subsequent action plan be produced as part of our quarterly reporting on the outcomes-based performance framework. But we've decided in this instance to bring it forward as a standalone agenda item. The LGA action plan report provides an update on the progress we've made as we move at pace now against the actions to the recommendations set out by the Corporate Peer Challenge in 2023. The last time we reported, we had achieved a on-target completion of 7 of the 11 recommendations, and this sets out that we have delivered a total of 8, with the remaining on track for completion by the autumn. As the report sets out, it talks explicitly about the financial sustainability challenge facing the council as a consequence of temporary accommodation, and also pressures as a consequence of rising demand and cost vis-a-vis social care, both in adults and children. So financial sustainability is critical. The medium-term financial strategy and assets disposal have strengthened our fiscal position presently, but we know that there's more that we need to be doing. The report notes that, again, that we have our Voluntary Transformation and Improvement Board, which has been really instrumental and helpful in providing external scrutiny, and that has been invaluable. We've also, as the report sets out, reprioritised the Building a Fairer Newham corporate plan, which, as you all know, is a operational delivery document against the 2022 manifesto. And we ensured that we considered the prioritisation process within the context of the medium-term financial strategy and the budget forecast gap that we face over a 3-year period because of temporary accommodation costs and costs as it relates to social care and corresponding demand. We have ensured that we remain focused on the impact that we need to see within the organisation, as we have consistently called for every single penny and pound to be optimised in the way in which the council drives forward the raft of things that it undertakes in ensuring the health, wellbeing and happiness of our residents, which, let's not forget, is the measure of our economic success that we set out. And we are also ensuring that as we prioritise, we're not losing sight of the financial sustainability point required. In housing, you'll note in the report, the improvement plan has been completed, and it's an agenda item later on in today's meeting. And that's in response to the regulator of social housing C4 grading to Newham last autumn. But what the report does set out is notable progress in repairs, electrical safety and mobilisation around the all-important resident engagement piece, because we've set up the new resident challenge board. Equally, more work has been undertaken relating to workforce and cultural programmes to foster collaborative and effective cultural practice in the organisation, and that's both officer and members, because we all operate in an ecosystem. And it's also important to note that the report explicitly references the May best value notice, the non-statutory best value notice that we were issued by government, which underscores for all of us rightly the need for us to accelerate at pace in completion of not just the LGA corporate peer recommendations and our action plan against that, but to that crucial and fundamental point around financial sustainability. On the non-statutory best value notice, I just wanted to reiterate that we embrace the detail of that best value notice wholeheartedly and fully, accept what it has set out, and are determined to respond to all of the required sea change activities that we need to undertake. Never forget that we will remain committed to transparency, accountability and delivering better outcomes as part of our delivering a fairer Newham for all. I'm going to pause there. I'm going to invite Abby. Did you want to say anything in addition on this report?
There's not much that now. I'll open up to question reflections.
Okay, fine. So, colleagues, any questions?
Yes, well, thank you very much for that introduction. It's good to see that we are progressing reasonably well, and the pace has increased. And you also referred to the best value notice. And so the question I have is that how is the Voluntary and Independent Improvement and Transformation Board supporting us to further accelerate progress in key areas, particularly, obviously, we have a lot of progress on the LGA Peer Challenge, but I thought the best value notice as well.
Yeah, I'll say a few remarks and then I'll pass over to Abby. Voluntary and Independent Improvement and Transformation Board plays a vital role in offering a highly experienced team with a depth of knowledge in local government and elsewhere, and bringing to bear their insights and their perspectives for us to lean into. And the board, obviously, in the context of best value and the notice having reference in the fact that Newham had the voluntary board in place that was welcomed by government. We also recognise that they will have an enhanced role as part of the assurance piece that government would want certainty and confidence in that we remain moving at pace. They, as you would expect, provide both useful insight but also effective challenge for the corporate leadership board members representing the most senior officers of the council to reflect and respond to. I'm going to pause there and pass.
Thank you.
So just in addition, Councillor Ali, so the Independent Improvement Board, alongside their assurance role and the reassurance role, are working alongside the Office of Core of the organisation. So they're specifically focusing on areas with us around future financial sustainability, our continued housing improvement, and really considering those higher cost areas of the council and what more we can do to accelerate any change or transition, especially around sustainability.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, are there any other questions? Councillor John Whitworth.
It's good to hear about the improvement work underway. But what can we say have been the impacts of this improvement work so far?
Yeah, over to you.
So I'll give you some highlights because I think there's so much that's happened in the creative DLJ letter. So I would say from an officer level, it's been really good around development of our workforce and our leadership in the workforce. If you remember, one of the outcomes was us to have a workforce strategy and an ECI strategy, and being able to engage different parts of the organisation, development of the organisation as we move forward. The constitutional review has been a big piece of work, and actually what we've been able to see is really improved functions such as how we do council, and also the work around member development and ensuring the members get training and support. And then the other area that I'd just like to highlight is actually the financial planning and management. So one of the outcomes of the original report was us developing a longer term MTFS, which we successfully did. Thank you to Cabinet and the Mayor for leading on that. But actually what that enabled us to have is a longer programme that ensures that we have financial sustainability and transformation and factor in terms of what we're trying to achieve. So there's more, but that's just a highlight because we have completed most of the actions. There's only a few left that will be by the end of this summer.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah is Cabinet Member for Children Education and Sustainable Transport. On a similar vein to Councillor Whitworth, because we've seen how we've refreshed the performance monitoring. Because one of the issues that both the LGA and possibly Best Value was about how we work in pace. And I just wondered how that refreshed performance monitoring has enabled us to reach our key milestones at a quicker pace.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to answer, Councillor. So one of the key things that we've done around the kind of improved performance measurements is really it's enabled the organisation to have clearer early warning signs so that quicker reaction to improvements can be achieved. And further to that, it's enabled us to streamline where we want to focus, look at mitigations much earlier, and to ensure that where there are risks that we can't mitigate against, that they are escalated at the earliest point. So hopefully the implementation continues, it will help us really get on those key areas of focus we have been.
Okay, are there any other questions? No? All right, brilliant. So can we just move to the recommendations They're on in the report, big page number 31 or small page number 3. And I'm reading from a hard copy. For the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, the Mayor and Cabinet are recommended to note 2.1, the progress made since the LGA peer challenge in December 2023 and its subsequent progress visit in October 2024 outlined in this report and its appendix. 2.2, that this report provides a progress update separate to the usual quarterly building referendum and performance report, which will be presented to Cabinet in July 2025 and will include progress updates as it relates to delivery against the building referendum corporate plan and implementation of the Transforming Newham for the Future plan. 2.3, that in response to non-statutory best value notice issued by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, the Mayor and Cabinet will be receiving quarterly best value progress reports to provide assurance on the council's progress against the areas highlighted as areas of concern. Sorry, before I invite everyone to vote, just a quick one. Should I just include in that 2.3, there'll also be subsequent presentation to full council? Okay, sorry, colleagues, I'm just going to amend that last recommendation because it omitted reference to full council reporting. So 2.3 now reads that in response to the non-statutory best value notice issued by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, the Mayor and Cabinet will be receiving quarterly best value progress reports to provide assurance on the council's progress against the areas highlighted as areas of concern. Additionally, there will be a regular reporting represented to full council. Is that agreed? Right, thank you very much. That's agreed, Joy. Now we are moving on to the update to Cabinet on the social housing improvement plan, and that's set out pages 67 to 146. And I'll invite Councillor Blossom Young to introduce and present the report.
Thank you, Chair, and colleagues, very pleased to present this quarterly report to you. So access to safe, secure homes and high quality landlord services for tenants and leaseholders living in council managed housing is of paramount importance. We know that housing forms the bedrock of people's lives and has an impact on a range of other life outcomes. As the Mayor's already referred to, the Regulator of Social Housing inspected Newham's housing services in May 2024 and gave its judgment in October, issuing the council with a C4 grading against its consumer standards. This is the lowest grading possible and indicated serious failings in compliance across several key areas, as outlined in this report. But since the publication of the judgment, we've embarked on an ambitious improvement journey, which is starting to see results in addressing the significant failings the regulator identified. I'm really pleased to be able to share Newham's Housing Services Improvement Plan as appended, and this sets out the roadmap for how the council will deliver safe, secure homes for its tenants and its leaseholders, how it will make sure that residents accessing its housing services are treated with dignity and with respect, and how residents can take an active role in shaping services and holding the council to account in this important effort. There's been significant work to address failings identified by the regulator, and resident feedback has also meant we've been accelerating over recent months. And I'm really pleased to see some of the results in this and the improved outcomes we're already seeing for residents. We've seen significant progress in addressing our repairs backlog, in improving our levels of electrical safety checks, and improving our knowledge about the conditions of our housing stock, which will help to improve home standards moving forward. The work taking place to identify and support our most vulnerable tenants is an important fire safety measure, and I'm pleased to see how the initial results of this work are supporting residents to access further support from cross-council services. New leadership appointments have been made, external assurance partnerships are in place, and there's an increased focus on getting the best outcomes for our residents. So I'm confident that we're turning a corner and we're on the right track to deliver safe and secure council homes with and for residents. I commend this report and the improvement plan to Cabinet.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to be opening up to questions, colleagues. Councillor Almoberdi.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Almoberdi, Statutory Deputy Mayor, Cabinet Member for Housing Needs, Homelessness, PRS and Community Safety, Green Street, Westford. Thanks to Councillor Boston. My first question is, can you outline how the increased focus on tenant engagement has shaped the improvement work being delivered?
So I think a really increased focus on resident engagement in both shaping the improvement plan and in the improvement work more generally has been a really key thing, and one of the first things that we've done and really put in place. And that's taking a number of different forms. So we've established a resident challenge board, which is a group of residents who are holding us to account on the delivery of the improvement plan. I met with them yesterday, and they're already coming up with significant numbers of recommendations around particular areas of work, which is great to see. And I really value their time and contribution to working with us on this improvement. We're also quite far down the road of developing a new resident involvement strategy for the service. So that will go to public consultation in very early July. We've had a series of surveys and a series of workshops with residents to date, and it's been really interesting to see the very early emerging themes in that report, and I think will significantly refine and refresh the way that we approach resident engagement in the future. But I think it's also about how that works at a really individual level. So that's about every interaction that residents have with our service area, whether that's calling our repair centre, whether that's sending us an email, whether that is housing officers seeing people on their doorsteps. And I think those interactions are so valuable in making sure that we are getting really significant feedback, and all of that is shaping the approach that we're taking.
Yep, okay, Councillor Charlie McLean.
Brilliant, thank you, Chair. Councillor Charlie McLean, Cabinet Member for Resident Engagement and Resident Experience from West Ham Ward. Thank you for your previous answer. That was really reassuring to know that, you know, residents have been involved in because it affects their lives. I was just wondering what signs we're seeing that investment is really making a difference for residents.
Absolutely. I'll pass on to Paul if I can.
Thank you. So Paul Kitson, Corporate Director of Inclusive Economy, Housing and Culture at the Council. A number of different ways, I suppose, Councillor. The most obvious probably to residents is that at the time of inspection we had about 2,700 historical repairs which hadn't been undertaken. And over the past few months we've reduced that down to about 10. So I think the most immediate thing that most residents would have noticed is that their out-of-date repairs have been fulfilled now. Other things, I suppose, that have come through. So we've undertaken a significant number of electrical tests as well. So the focus around safety and quality is our primary focus for the improvement plan. So we've undertaken a significant number of electrical tests to properties and stock condition surveys. So we've undertaken around 3,000 stock condition surveys of properties, all a result of extra investment. What that means for residents, I suppose, it means that they've got assurance that their facilities, their utilities are up to date and safe. Stock condition survey also does throw up both long-term investment needs, but also short-term repairs and other things that then can get into the work programme and then get sorted as well. So residents are seeing the benefits relatively quickly. Some of the longer term, so Cabinet signed off a few months ago a decency programme, if you recall, for kitchens and bathrooms, for example, and there'll be more papers coming forward over the coming months. They will take a little bit longer to flow through. There's obviously quite procurement exercises. And then those programmes take many months, if not a year or a year and a half, to complete those sorts of decency. So residents are seeing hopefully, some immediate effects. Not all residents, of course, and that's very much the focus of our plan, is to make sure that residents are feeling the benefits of it. Otherwise, why we're here. So immediate benefits and then some longer term benefits will sort of flow through, I suppose.
It's brilliant, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions, colleagues? Nope, right, okay, so Can I draw your attention to the recommendations on big page number 68, if you've got a printed copy, but it's also got a small number 2 on the page as well. Recommendations are as follows. For the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to note 2.1, the Council's progress to date on the development and implementation of its response to the Regulator of Social Housing's report, and 2.2, the further plans to drive improvements and bring the service into full compliance with the regulatory consumer standards set out in Appendix 2 and summarised in Appendix 1. Is that agreed? That's agreed, Joy. Thank you very much. Now moving on to the last agenda item for this morning, community opportunities. I'm going to be inviting Councillor Neil Wilson to introduce this report.
Very much, Chair. Councillor Neil Wilson, lead member for Health and Adult Social Care and representative of Northstowe South. This proposal's in front of the Cabinet this morning are to establish a framework for our community opportunities, which offers several benefits. Because we're predicated upon the assumption that people need flexibility and choice in our personalisation and targeted approach to all our residents. We believe that this framework will enhance that flexibility and choice by enabling the suppliers to join the suppliers of these services throughout the framework period, which increases competition and providing a wider range of options. The most important thing is the outcome for our residents to have the widest range of possible options. That flexibility ensures that people can continuously adapt to changing needs and preferences. We have a very dynamic population churn. We have people coming in and out of social care needs, and it's important that those are met at the most obvious points of contact. We believe also that this framework will have improved quality because they'll be setting minimum quality standards for the suppliers, but the framework also ensures that only high quality services are offered. It helps maintain a consistent level of care and support for residents. In our examinations to date, Lydia has done the work online, but also Jason may wish to comment further, Chair, but lots of points. There is a real need to maintain a consistent level of care and support for our residents. In this time of increasing problems with our budgets that you've already referred to, Chair, in terms of adult social care, which is a national issue, clearly, we are looking all the time for cost efficiencies by enabling control over cost and future uplifts in e-contracts, helping to maintain our budget pressures more effectively. And we are very clear that in the report outlined in further sections that it aligns with our council priorities for our vision in terms of the adult health vision, which is clearly based on people-centred, people being at the heart of everything we do, but the most important, it is not just targeting services, it is about how there's a flexibility for people to come in and out of community opportunities. It is in line with both that vision, but I would argue, because Councillor Sarah Ruiz has also been included in this, it is a whole realm of issues in terms of the vision, more outlined in 4.3. So not just dementia services, and people are actually having more early diagnosis and cognitive impairment, older people services, active support, found learning disabilities, positive behaviour support, and in addition, an in-house autism and learning disability enabled. Councillor Ruiz and I are clearly very concerned, along with Laura Eden and Jason, the relevant directorates, in terms of transitions, particularly for some of the people who are not just in receipt of a diagnosis of autism by the university, but in terms of learning disabilities, to actually enable really responsive support, which makes certain that they live independent living skills, which are appropriate to their ability and needs. I'll leave it there, Chair, and ask if you wish to add any.
All right, fine. Lydia, are there any additional comments, points that you wanted to emphasise by way of drawing attention to this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Wilson has covered a lot of it, but the important elements for us is really that putting in place this framework will put us in a better position to support older residents and those with disabilities to access the activities they want at times they want in ordinary spaces close to their homes where possible. And also we're kind of hoping that that would mean that it would negate the need for a commission service. But when we are commissioning services, it allows us to provide high quality provision, value for money provision, and services that really give people a sense of purpose and connection, which is really important for both their physical and mental well-being.
Right, fine. May I just ask, I mean, I'm assuming that the framework around the community opportunities, not literally the framework that we're addressing here, but the way in which the community opportunities approach by the council aligns to everything set out in the corporate plan and underpinned by the Building a Fairer Newham vision. It's just because that in itself is completely absent. So just for future reference in report drafting, because there's a policy framework in which the council operates. And I find it quite surprising that something as significant as this, that will have a material impact on the lived experience of quite a vulnerable cohort of our resident community in Newham, isn't being surfaced and explicit. Can I also ask, on the co-design outcomes for the resident cohort set out, is that co-designed with those residents? And I appreciate that this is a framework. How will you get specialists that align to each of the resident cohort requirements?
I think I'll chuck that back to Lydia. Apologies to my cabinet colleagues and your mayor that we haven't cross-referenced to the Building a Fairer Newham, but that we have noticed that. I think we were keen to establish this framework because there were several rumours going around at things like the co-production forum that I chair, that we were cutting provision. This is about a repositioning, but to create a framework. But Lydia, over the specific that the mayor asked, did you get the question?
Yeah, so the plan is to go out to our wider market, which in the main is going to be our community, voluntary and faith sector, who reflects our population, and to have separate lots for specific cohorts of people, which will allow us to hopefully be able to deliver those specialist services. And then we want to be able to design the specification and the method statement questions with the residents who are going to be in receipt of those services and those that may be in receipt of those services in the future. So kind of touching on the young people aspect that Councillor Wilson spoke about, and also having those individuals where possible sit on the evaluation panels. So we're really commissioning services that's from within our community, meeting the needs of the people who are in receipt of the services and then being heavily involved in that process.
Okay, so just noting the numbers, so we've got a value of 28.2 million over a 4-year period. And just in terms of tracking impact, if the beneficiary supplier, as it were, are from our voluntary community and faith sector, is there thinking already underway around the community wealth building impact in line with council strategies on this piece? I mean, it's 225.6 million over 8 years.
Yeah, but that's because it also includes our North East London partners. So for us in adults, it would be 4.7 million a year, which we're currently spending. But there's other partners, particularly Hackney and Waltham Forest, that are interested in joining our framework, for which there will be a charge, because we tend to use similar providers sometimes, particularly those that are very specialist around sensory impairment across borough.
Okay. And sorry, on the evaluation point, how are you going to evaluate impact locally? In terms of this framework and the procurement and diversifying the supply chain, how that aligns to community wealth building? And also, I think a follow-up question would be, how do we mitigate against the reality that not all voluntary community faith sector groups are equal? There's, established, mature actors in that sector. There are smaller fledgling organisations that are responding to the needs of newer communities or communities that arguably have been sort of excluded from the system, as it were. How do we ensure an equitable approach to this, plus the community wealth building?
So I'll touch on some of that, and if you may, when we come back in. So on the community wealth building side, I think the focus so far has been on trying to develop a framework where we can reach a wide range of providers to meet the needs of the residents that we're looking to support. I think it's a hugely important point that we can build in going forward for how we evaluate the broader community wealth building impact of this change. On the other point, there's a wide range of support that's going to be included in this framework, from highly specialist kind of support for people with very particular needs, where we need very special providers with those specialist skills, to less specialists, and I think we'll speak to a broad range of capacity within the voluntary sector. We'll speak to different parts of the sector being able to access different elements of this.
Okay. And if I may, sorry, I can pick up the detail outside of this meeting. If I may, in addition to the community wealth building a Fair lens through which this framework will be established, and then activity impact will be tracked through an appropriate evaluation framework that aligns to the corporate, tracking progress and impact. What are the more marginalised voices in this space? I made reference to there's a voluntary community and faith sector.
Yep.
That has evolved and mature organisations, but they're smaller ones that don't necessarily get a look in.
So this framework actually allows us to be able to run mini competitions of various values for specific groups. So, for example, we could run a mini competition for autistic Albanian residents, for example, which would be quite niche and allow those smaller voluntary and community faith organisations to bid for the contracts. It also allows consortia arrangements, etc. And we tend to do, we're planning to do, if you agree the recommendations, to do a lot of training for this sector in partnership with our services, upskilling them to be able to bid for those contracts.
There's a lot more opportunity in this for smaller grassroots voluntary organisations who can meet and reach different parts of our communities than the current approach.
Okay, and then finally, just in the context of the best value lens, how do we ensure that through this budget assignment, we are demonstrating best value in the context that there isn't other money elsewhere in other directorates being spent on the same things? Because I'm noting, for instance, access to work, training, education and volunteering for a cohort that's quite marginalised, but that's also something that another part of the council is required to do through other programmes.
We're very actively working with our new work, for example, to align their work with our needs to support working age adults who have care and support needs to access training, employment, because the whole lens here is around promoting independence. So we're absolutely not replicating work going on elsewhere. We're trying to align the other work similarly with older people where the work may be more preventative, trying to align it with the work already of our community neighbourhoods team. So actually we're not commissioning independently of the work we're doing there, but supporting older people who may have the capabilities to access universal activity in our community, to access what we already have in place, rather than entirely. The best value lens really runs very strongly through this.
Okay, and then may I ask both of you?
Yeah.
So in a year's time, So what's the difference going to be impact, do you hope? What can cabinet members, residents from this cohort, families of this cohort, of these cohorts, what will they be able to see or feel?
Well, can I just do the direct benefits of having this? Because
Lydia, could you put yourself on mute? Because we can hear you typing.
A framework, it's about cost-effective care and support, reducing the burden, particularly on family caregivers, which is equally important, because this is about, they were labelled at one time day opportunities or community opportunities, and people were spending quite a long time getting to, say, for instance, chargeable lane. It's about making certain, in alignment with central government as well as our government local government direction, to providing services. So there's a reduced burden on family caregivers, cost-effective care and support, community opportunity activities, promote physical and cognitive wellness, with the emphasis on more preventative and delaying the needs for long-term care. So it is about a more tailored offer, Chair. I mean, we've already mentioned that we're working in partnership with Hackney and Waltham Forest and other North East partners to join in on previously marginalised groups, which me and you have already spoken to and about in terms of visual impairment or hearing impairment. But when those impairments are compounded by, say, physical disability or others, it is about where do we actually make certain that those residents are not further marginalised. But as I think Jason and Lydia said, that we are working with capacity building, particularly bearing in mind that, as you say, not all of the voluntary community and faith sector offer is currently equal. And in terms of expertise, people are there, but they might be needed to support on how they deliver the programme. Long answer, but it's quite a complicated landscape. This is the framework at the moment. It's coming back once we've done various things with it.
Well, there will start to be a whole range of changes that residents will experience quite quickly in terms of, generally speaking, in terms of more specialist services to meet particular cohorts that are mentioned within the paper, more supports that's by them in terms of the co-production work, so meeting their aspirations and their needs, more independence, work with older people, supporting them to access support closer to their homes in the community. So I think our residents and their carers and families will see quite meaningful, really meaningful changes.
Right, are there any other questions, colleagues? Councillor John Whitworth.
Councillor John Whitworth, Cabinet Member for Air Quality and Climate Emergency, and Councillor for West Ham Ward. Yeah, I appreciate the important points about maintaining people in good condition and preventing deterioration, therefore greater need, and also for encouraging independence. But can you say a bit more of how the programme will help empower residents to build skills and resilience?
Yeah, Lydia, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, so we would definitely be looking to introduce different types of independent living skills. So they would include things like independent travel training, being able to do meal preparation, better understanding of stranger danger, social awareness, those types of areas, how to access different universal services, including our leisure centres and the activities that are happening in our libraries, contributing to a more inclusive environment. There's a wider kind of enablement piece that is sitting underneath this, particularly for those individuals with learning disabilities and or autism.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Suffolk.
Thank you, Chair. I know we've had a quite lengthy discussion in terms of community opportunities, etc. But I just wonder how specifically you think that this framework will actually assist the community in terms of the flexibility and the choices and opportunities, etc. And how will that benefit the council from your perspective?
So I missed the second part of that.
Second part, first is obviously how will the community benefit from it in terms of flexibilities and opportunities? But second is how does this have an impact in terms of best value that we are delivering? How will we demonstrate that through this process?
So the community side of it, so the community, the land community opportunities in this paper is about supporting these residents who draw on care and support to access it's around the kind of support they access in the community. So this is rather than kind of care and support that they would receive at home or in another residential setting. So this is about that's the context in which community is being used in this paper. In terms of best value, this is contributing to our MTFS, firstly, very directly, but also in creating and bolstering the support that we have to promote people's independence. Our aim is to prevent people from needing more intensive, more expensive care and support. All of the packages that people use through this approach are all subject to all of the work that we do to try and ensure that people get a cost-effective care and support through adult social care. So that is, it's all subject to all of those processes at the level of the individual to try and ensure that we are supporting individuals in the most cost-effective way to meet their care and support needs.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
And sorry, just on the MTFS, we did have discussions elsewhere, and in the last budget discussion, we're moving this into the 3-year cycle, Councillor, in terms of offering up the day opportunities lens as a potential for realisable saving. So there is no there's sort of here. It's actually in line with what we said that would be delivering, and possibly even greater savings. Bearing in mind, I don't want to lose sight of this, but this is a framework that we can, as we have in other areas of adult social care and health, particularly working with the North East London partners, because there could be efficiencies of scale. In fact, we know there might well be economies of scale that we've already referenced Hackney and Moreton Borough. So if there was a in terms of MTFS, this is the first iteration of it, but hopefully, because this is a long programme, that we're already doing far more upstream is the word I think I'm looking for, upstream prevention, and clearly that will have a very beneficial effect in terms of the more expensive cost provision, where it is long term.
Okay. Thank you, John.
I think also just on the back of your questions, Ulrika, if you go to 4.5, presently there are no contractual arrangements in place because there's a degree of spot purchasing, and then that limits cost and quality control. So having this in place actually conforms to best value requirement. The only thing that I would query is that best value point on the 5.2 admission to the framework re-evaluated on 100% quality. So how does the 100% quality square with best value?
So it's 100%.
Sorry, yeah, I haven't finished my question. Because it's not qualifying 100% quality in the context of best value, and we could end up bringing onto the framework high cost but quality providers.
Sorry, Mayor. Yeah, so it's 100% quality for providers to gain access onto the framework. However, once they're on there, we'll be running mini competitions that would have different price quality ratios. So that's where you would get your 70% price, 30% quality, etc. This allows us to make sure that we're getting providers on who are high quality before we then consider price in consideration to the mini competitions that would be run following that.
Okay, fine. I don't know whether there's a slight contradiction there. I appreciate the sort of 2-stage, making sure that you separate the chaff from the wheat, and then get.
A bit like what we do for interviews.
And then.
Be clarified.
I wouldn't equate it in the same way. I think I'm trying to make the substantive point I'm trying to make is I'm assuming we've got to accept that when you put in place 100% quality baseline to get onto the framework, that inevitably means a higher level of cost in any case. albeit something that is high quality, pitches, and then we assess on the 70% and 30%, will still be slightly higher cost, arguably, unless someone can show me the evidence that it doesn't translate that like that in practice. Arguably, it could lead to that. No, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to take it from the corporate director and the cabinet member.
So we want providers to provide these specialist services who meet our basic quality standards, but then the mini competitions will still incentivise providers to be as productive as possible in the way that they submit bids to actually deliver the work.
Okay.
So just to emphasise, the admission to the framework is on quality. Each time the framework is opened, the evaluation tenders will be based on 100% quality. But then the direct award and the running of mini competitions for the resident cohorts that cannot be supported by the future in-house offer, as listed, you know, we've mentioned, say, residents with learning disabilities with a low level of autistic residents, that would be subject to a competition. The quality is, I mean, dare I use approved providers, or is that's a phrase that, you know, is sort of, you know, no longer in the modern procurement framework, but it is about, there is an argument about saying, you know, 100% quality might be for only those that require initial, say, per capita cost, but it is about how any competition and the direction of awards is quality controlled in terms of all those various aspects that need best value. Value for money is crucial, particularly in the lens that the council finds itself.
Okay. Is it a question? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to
Take it from
that question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lydia, for clarifying that two-stage process. My question now is the market sufficiently mature that you're going to have enough people on the framework to have competition at the second stage?
Lydia, do you want to comment on that one?
Yes, we believe there's actually a number of different providers that are offering a number of different types of services. So not necessarily your traditional all-day day centres, but people that are offering skills to teach people how to use WhatsApp, skills that do chair-based exercise, skills in lots of different areas that will enable our residents to have more choice and control over the type of activities that they can participate in to help meet that Care Act eligible need.
That's
and
fine.
that also means price wise, we're able to not commission necessarily in the same way. So like all day at a day centre for 8 hours, for example, it allows us to do half days, a couple of hours, etc. Again, kind of having more control over that cost element of services.
I fully appreciate that, but I think my question is more around about the market testing element, or are we narrowing the scope of the future contractors because we are defining the quality at such a high level that we're not going to get many people coming through the process and we'll have a limited competition, not delivering perhaps the best value?
No, so the agreement that we've had with procurement is actually we want to run a series of market engagement sessions, and those market engagement sessions wouldn't only be to promote the fact that we're going to be procuring if Cabinet agree today, but also allow us to determine what those quality standards look like, akin to what the market is currently geared up to deliver, so that we don't deliberately not include those smaller kind of organisations and capacity build them.
Okay, I think the conversations are entering into different space that we need to pick up outside, but can we please pick up? Because I think it's obviously the principle and the substantive drive behind that is innately good. I think there are just a few questions for clarification around impact that are required. Okay. Particularly around the evaluation. Councillor Murad Patel.
Thank you, Chair. I know there's been quite lengthy discussions on this, but my question was specifically around the flexibility, as Councillor Ali mentioned as well. Does the flexible nature of this programme allow us to better respond to the local needs as they emerge?
Can I answer that?
I'll start if I may, Chair. I mean, we have said in the paper that this is, the current provision is quite frankly really a one size, but you know, you're given this package, you will take it. This is open, more responsive. And I did say in my introduction, but I think Lydia would concur that it's local needs as they emerge, because we can open the framework throughout. It's not a closed process. It is not sort of carry on doing business as usual. It's far from that. And it is about local needs emerging. For instance, we referenced, I think Lydia did, about the growing needs not necessarily recognised in our whole demographic in terms of the East European community or Black African men, for instance, with mental health needs, which may be exacerbated by stigmatisation, unity, and having to think about those in safe spaces. So it is important, I think, that this is quite granular, this framework, and it's more flexible. Because it's open at any time, but it does have that capacity building, which I think the Mayor rightly alluded to in terms of the variability of capacity within the quality sector, but also, as Lydia said, some of this is really quite dynamic stuff. For instance, working with our employment team on things like safe access to transport. People who have been nervous to even go out of their house to be included socially is quite important as a road to not just improving their mental health, obviously clearly their employment opportunities. Long answer, Chair, but I don't know whether you want to come back with any more specific than I've done on.
Okay, fine, yep. Right, I'm going to suggest that we close this. Let's move to the recommendations. For the reasons set out in this report, Cabinet is asked to agree to 3.1, the establishment of a framework for community opportunities with a term of 4 years with the option to extend for further 4 years at an estimated annual value of up to 28.2 million, and that's 225.6 million over the 8 years. For Newham, the annual value is up to 4.7 million, and that's 37.6 million over the 8 years. 3.2, delegate authority to the corporate director for adults and health in consultation with lead member for health and adult social care to admit suppliers onto the framework following a competitive tendering procedure during the life of the framework. 3.3, delegate authority to the corporate director for adults and health in consultation with the lead member for health and adult social care to approve commencement of mini competitions under the framework and award contracts, including direct award once the framework is established. 3.4, delegate authority to the corporate director of adults and health in consultation with the lead member for health and adult social care to approve the extension of the framework after the initial term. I am really nervous about 3.4, as in, I don't think it should be a carte blanche extension for 4 years without coming back for cabinet approval, actually. And I would like to see a progress report yearly. I just think that's really important because it helps us get the assurance this is having the impact in the way that this report is alluding to, but not explicit. And I think the range of questions that have been raised points to a need for a recommendation to that effect. So can we change 3.4?
Just want to add in to approve the extension of the framework after not that then.
I think on 3.3, it's adding with an annual report coming to cabinet around progress and impact.
And that's on a yearly basis.
Yeah. And then 3.4, it actually needs to bring back to cabinet report on the extension of the framework after the initial term.
Yeah.
That feels sensible. I'm just really conscious about the MTFS position.
So you could achieve that either by amending 3.4 or simply delete it, and then there is no delegation. So by definition, any extension would have to come back to cabinet. It either has the same practical effect.
We've just got to would we not have to amend 3.1? With the option to extend?
No, because contractually there's an option to extend. The point of 3.4 is who gets to exercise that option.
Okay, let's then delete.
Delegation.
Yeah, so basically we're deleting recommendation 3.4 and with 3.3, we're including an annual report, an annual progress and impact report to come to cabinet on a yearly basis, yeah. Yeah, okay. Right, so colleagues, the recommendations have now been amended. 3.4, please strike out. 3.3 to add an annual
Impact and progress.
yeah, impact and progress report to come back to cabinet. Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder what, to cabinet, does that mean coming for formal approval at a cabinet meeting?
Formal noting, not approval.
Formal noting at a cabinet
Yeah.
meeting?
Because you'll be doing, in any case, it's not onerous, you'll be preparing progress against the performance framework. The council, and is it an additional or?
Yeah, it's just that I guess we do lots of things of this scale, and that would be quite a kind of new routine exercise for cabinet to be seeing annual progress updates on these kinds of items, rather than going, for example, through a CAF process.
What are your thoughts?
And this went to CAF, didn't it?
Yeah, it went to.
Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah. But noting the overarching performance progress, so you know you call it I put it in there in the adult section.
An annual impact and progress report to be presented to cabinet, and then that allows us to bring it to the strategic oversight board. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
An annual impact and progress report to be presented to cabinet.
Were you saying that, or were you saying it goes in the progress, the performance report that comes? That goes to cabinet provided the mayor strategic. That one, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
we're
what?
noting against the performance quarterly.
How, so what's the word? Sorry.
Extension. Okay. So the wording will be in 3.3. After an award, including direct award, once the framework is established, and then add in delegate. It'd have to be another and a annual impact and progress report would be brought back to cabinet. It wouldn't put the strategic bit, that happens anyway. It's not expressly going to put that.
Wording would be an annual impact report to be presented to cabinet of the relevant strategic board.
I've got this, 1 second. The annual impact to be presented to the mayor and cabinet at the relevant strategic board of the council in line with its internal governance.
Do you want to just add in progress and impact?
Yeah. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so colleagues, after the words, last sentence of 3.3, where you've got once the framework is established, full stop, then we're going to be inserting an annual impact and progress report to be presented to the mayor and cabinet at the relevant strategic board of the council in line with its internal governance arrangements. Yeah? All right, fine. Thank you for that, Jason. So noting all of that and the amendments,
Yes, Chair.
recommend, do we agree, cabinet?
Agree.
Okay, great. Now, just moving on to the final agenda item for this morning. We've got to just note exclusion of the press and public instrument that we can use, which we haven't evoked today. Is that noted?
Noted.
All right, fine. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your attendance today.
Yes.